Well, new episode of Fantasy Fastlane. This is the 2019 version, a little bit different look, and on location here at the Streamline Hotel, the birthplace of NASCAR, Daytona Beach. If you're going to talk about fantasy racing and the Daytona 500, what better place than where it all began, where NASCAR was created, the Streamline Hotel right here on A1A. Let's break right into it. It's been a busy winter for you already,
yes.
But before we get into the 2019 season, I want to know, did you learn anything by losing to me last year?
I didn't lose to you.
That's questionable. Well, this is basically what happened. I beat her in the regular season, and she beat me in the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the game. A few tweaks to the game this year. Your lineup is saved. Big fan of that. So if you go on vacation, it's still in there. You have to do your bonus picks over again. But you don't have to go in and change your picks. It'll be in from last week. So that's a good thing. The other thing is if you're in multiple leagues like I am, you can make your lineup one time, and it goes through every league.
It's so much easier. The way they've done it this year, it just makes it so much easier for the consumer. And it's so much easier, like you said, if you're on vacation, it can roll over. And a lot of times, we're picking a lot of these same guys in between the leagues. You may vary a couple of guys here and there, but it just makes it so much easier for fantasy players.
Well, so you talked about picking. Before we talk about who you're going to pick for Daytona, what did you learn? Did you run out of picks at race 26? Remember, you're limited to 10. I felt pretty good going into the summer. Hurt my feelings. Some of my big names didn't pay off like I hoped they would.
You know, it's funny. At the end of the year, I know we had a new playoff game and everything, but at the end of the year, I found myself going, man, I have all these big three uses that I haven't used up yet. And, you know, you'd have situations where they wouldn't run as well, and you're like, well, I don't know if I want to play them, but I also don't want to leave these, you know, these great guys sitting on my bench when I have all these uses. So I was maybe a little bit too conservative with some of these guys. This year, I don't know. I think we'll see some new names in there, so I don't know if we'll have the big three per se. I think Logano kind of shot that last year with his win in the championship. So we'll see. I think we'll have some new names come up.
Well, that was going to be my question. So are we going to have a big three? I saw you were out in Vegas for testing, interviewing drivers. What was your takeaway of the rules package of Vegas? And just overall, are there any names you're looking for to maybe have a breakout season?
The rules package in Vegas, it's just going to be different with the way that these teams attack the races. I mean, it's a lot of the drivers, Kyle Busch was one of them that said it, it's kind of like a chess match, a little bit more mental strategy, a little bit, you know, you saw
I don't mean to laugh, but anytime a driver tells me he's going to play chess, I laugh. But
you don't think Kyle Busch can play chess?
I don't know about Kyle specifically. I've never worked with him, but I work with some drivers, and they're not chess players.
All right. Well, they're going to have to learn to be chess players this year, I guess.
All right.
But it's just going to be more mental. It's going to be different with the way they attack this track, and it's going to be who can figure that out best. You know, we saw them drafting at Vegas, which is unusual, you know, for an intermediate like Vegas to go 3 and 4 wide. So that was really interesting. The Chevys had some speed surprisingly out in Las Vegas. You know, you saw Jimmy Johnson, Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon have some speed, but ultimately the Fords, I think, will come out again this year and have a good season. It didn't appear to be any growing pains from the duels with the Mustang. I mean, they came out and won top 3 for both duels, right?
Yeah,
so
they ran well. It's been a great week so far for the Mustang.
Yeah, so I think we're going to see a lot of the Ford drivers continue to have good years. I think Logano's going to continue his momentum. I also think Ryan Blaney's going to have a really good year. I know he won once last year with the Roval, but he was just – I don't think his results really tell how good he was last year in terms of the way he ran. So I think he'll have a decent season. I think we'll see him have a couple more wins there too.
So before we get your picks for Daytona, I have to bring in our new personality here on Fantasy Fastlane, only because he was eye-rolling during your breakdown of the potential competitors in 2019. It's Stat Guy Russell. So those of you who don't know Russell, he basically provides the stats to a lot of different people in the garage, a lot of different broadcasts. He works well with me, and maybe or may not he might have been some of the stuff I had last year. So we decided just to bring him on here because his stats let me down at times. There were a lot of important numbers, but your numbers lied to me certain races.
Well, I'm cutting you off this year now that I'm on the show, so
yeah, he
good
can't
luck
give
with
you
everything.
any
So it'll be an easy win, All right, so we talked about all of 19, but let's talk about Daytona specifically. We've seen qualifying. We watched the Clash. We watched the 150s. It's been an odd week. The races have not looked like standard Daytona racing, so I'll put you on the spot first, Jessica. Who is your must-start? Give me a couple names that are no doubt making your lineup.
Must start Joey Logano. You know, we saw that move on Clint Boyer last night in the duel to get that win. That's a gutsy move that not a lot of people can pull off. And Joey's just so good at Daytona. It's surprising when you look at Daytona. It's hard to find drivers that are consistent at Daytona. I know you, looking at the stats, it's hard to find those guys. Joey's one of the few. I mean, he's had several. He had that finish, the win in the Daytona 500 in 2015.
Yep.
Had top 10s, I believe, ever since then in the 500, which is practically unheard of. I like Joey Logano in there. I like Ryan Blaney in there, who was pushing him in that duel last night.
Ooh, you lost me there. Listen, you had me at
Logano.
Logano for sure. Can we all agree Logano's a must pick? I think for a couple reasons. One, he's great at the plate tracks, And while I expect him to run good all year long, I don't know if he's a complete lock at every other track. So, therefore, he is a must-start.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like Jessica said, he's top 6 the last 4 or 500s.
So I told you he was going to have all the numbers. How about Blaney, though? She mentions Blaney. I don't have Blaney in my lineup. He's in one of those Penske Fords that looks good. For or against Blaney?
I like Blaney.
See?
Oh, boy. I'm already
He
feeling
led over
better
100
there.
Maybe
laps.
you need him.
He's over 100 laps last year in the 500.
Yeah, but leading laps doesn't score me points. I need a guy that's going to be around at the end. I'm not convinced he has the moxie to get to the finish of the 500 the way Logano does. There's something about the bull in the China shop moves that Logano makes that seems to always work out. All right, so you got Blaney, Logano, 2 Fords going really out on a limb. Give me the rest of your lineup.
I like Paul Menard, another Penske-affiliated Ford. I mean, I think we saw with him in the Clash and then him in the duel last night, too. I think, you want to conserve some of these uses, too. And so I think Menard is a good option for a plate track. And with that, he's practically having the Penske power. He does have the Penske power under his hood. So having that in the Daytona 500 is going to be really useful.
Well, I like it. I mean, you look at his Daytona numbers. I'm going to steal him from you here. I mean, he's been great. He's on a hot streak, 6 or better in 3 of the last 4. He knows how to run here. And I do think the fact that I'm not looking at a bunch of tracks where he's a must-start, I like Paul Menard. So far, you're on a hot streak.
Yeah.
Who else you got?
Eric Almirola.
I feel like you've looked at my notes.
I didn't look at your notes.
Okay.
But when I glanced over after I made my lineup.
You felt better? So you're not worried about Eric Almirola not being available later in the year? You're convinced? I mean, last year he was wrecked on the last lap of the Daytona 500. You think it's a rebound year? Is this an emotional pick, or is this off the numbers?
Eric told us when we were at Media Day, he was like, this is redemption. He kind of moved on from that Daytona 500 Daytona 500 race last year, that last lap. He was a half a lap away, though. We can't forget that. And we also can't forget that he won at Talladega last year, too. He's always been good at the plate track. So I don't think necessarily using Eric Almirola at a plate track is going to be, a waste of a pick. I think he'll run well. And we saw him running well in the duels, too.
So 4 Fords. Do you have anybody but a Ford?
I have Matt DiBenedetto, actually.
Oh, the big Toyota, the 95. Big news, so let's make sure everybody understands. Matt moved to the 95 car, has Mike Wheeler on the pit box, Denny Hamlin's old crew chief. They're getting some help from Joe Gibbs Racing. You like Matty D as a pick?
Yeah, I like him as a pick. Wheeler won the 500 with Hamlin, so I think he's a good pick for here at Daytona.
Great run in the 150.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of did nothing. It wasn't spectacular, but just didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Kind of minded
Well, and
his
that's what the
P's and
duels
Q's.
are, right? You don't want to tear up your 500 car, too. So we saw a lot of these guys playing it safe a little bit. So, you saw guys like Joey Logano having great runs, but then some of the guys you're like, well, they were still good. Maybe didn't get up there, but they also don't want to ruin their chances at the 500.
So that's what's been blinding you as we've been having conversation is this diamond that my cohort over here has. Congratulations on the engagement. Big upcoming year. I've seen you covering people in Las Vegas live. What's on store? You got a lot heading on for NASCAR.com this year.
It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're doing a lot of really cool things. The Vegas test was a whole lot of fun, getting to talk to a bunch of drivers on the ground there. So we have a lot going on this year. I think it's going to be a really fun season. I think we'll have a lot of drivers coming up, so it's going to be really fun to chase those storylines.
All right, well, it's going to be an exciting 2019 for you. I'm happy for you there. We're going to see if you can perform somehow as well as you did last year. I'm not sure how it happened.
When I beat you?
I heard about that.
Playoffs is where it counts.
Well, that's Jessica's picks. But up next, we're going to bring in what used to be the mayor, Jeff Burton, but now it is Harrison Burton's dad, the most opinionated guy I know. We'll get Jeff Burton up to see what he thinks about the 2019 season. All right, my man, my coworker, although this week you're not NBC analyst Jeff Burton, you're Harrison Burton's dad, Jeff Burton. First, congratulations, the big ARCA win last week. That had to be exciting.
Yeah, that was fun, but that's over. It's on to the truck race. So you know how it is in racing, man. You enjoy it that night, then you got to go to the next thing. So
it doesn't take long.
It's at work, especially at Daytona. You're never really sure what's going to happen.
No, I hear. Well, let's talk about that. So this week has looked like really no other week that I've seen.
Yeah.
The Clash, I don't know. The rain, it was cool. It was just kind of odd. Then the 150s. I don't know if it's the package or conserve your race car. What's your opinion on what we saw out of the 150s?
I think it's certainly the package. I think they're certainly in the 150s because the majority of people in the field, they know they're in the race, and it's not like the difference between 8th and 12th is going to prevent you from winning the Daytona 500. But we saw in Talladega, we saw cars be able to get lined up, drive away from the field. I just don't think you can separate the package from the conversation. So, yeah, and by the way, this is the last time this package will be run.
Right.
So a new package at Talladega. So I don't know what to expect in the 500. I think it's going to be really interesting to see. I do know this. We've yet to have 40 cars on the racetrack. And you know how the energy changes with 40 cars and 40 drivers versus 20. Completely different. So I don't know how much we can draw from the 500, but I think this package is certainly rewarding people for getting single file.
Well, one thing's for sure. I've had a lot of good cars go bad when 40 cars get on the racetrack in the Daytona 500. But, hey, we're here. We're going to talk fantasy, and you can join, actually. Jeff and I are in a league together. NBC Sports has a fantasy league. You can come on and play against all the broadcasters, Dale Jarrett, Kyle Petty, Jeff Burton, myself. I think we get all our information from the same stat guy, so it's going to take a little bit of I notice you are really –
You give me the special information. Though.
Yeah, oh, I see how this is going to work. So let's talk about some drivers. We covered earlier some names, some must-haves. Jessica brought them up. I think Joey Logano, it's a waste of time to talk about. I can't think of anyone who's not starting him in the Daytona 500. And really Ford-heavy. I think you can pick and choose which ones you want. I like Menard because perhaps I won't need him throughout the rest of the season. But she had an interesting pick. Let's talk about that 95 car. Matt DiBenedetto, a name that I didn't have on the horizon. Good 150. What's your take of Matty D? Do you like him when it comes to speed racing?
I had him on my list as well. I think that you got to remember what I heard you mention earlier, their association with Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't think they have the same equipment. It's not the same deal that they had with Furniture Row, but it still has good equipment. And I think for a small team, young team like that, Matty D knows the mission. That's come out of Daytona without a major deficit. So I think in a weird kind of way, their situation being a small team will reward you picking him with consistency. I'm not saying he's going to win a race, but I think he's a guy that you can pick that will get you a consistent finish.
And he's finished top 10 in 2 of the last 4 Daytona races, too. So he knows how to race here.
In perhaps, I don't want to say subpar, but less funded equipment. Is it fair to say that the shift to the 95, let's tell the story, right? Matt bets on himself, says, hey, I'm not coming back here. I'm going to go get a new deal, takes his new deal to – he hopes a bigger powerhouse team ends up with Levine Family Racing and that Toyota agreement. So you have to imagine this is maybe better notch equipment.
It's a step up for sure.
How about – I'm going to stick in the Toyota camp. I think Denny Hamlin – you mentioned Matty D, maybe not a winner. I think with a lot of talk about Fords, I think Denny Hamlin can ruin the Ford parade here on Sunday. I think he has always shows up in the Great American Race. He has won the closest finish ever. He beat the 78 to the line by inches. Selfishly, he was second in 2014 to us. He's always in the top 5 of the 500, it seems like. So I have Denny as a must pick. Is there anything you see that you wouldn't take Denny Hamlin?
No, I think he's one of the most underrated restrictor plate racers we have. Like we always talk about Logano and Keselowski as your top 2. I think Hamlin is definitely in that group.
The question I've got with Hamlin is we saw it in the 150s. He was continually aggressive, and it continually hurt him. So is the package going to work against Denny Hamlin? Because sometimes, this sounds crazy, but in a plate race, sometimes being aggressive is actually a negative. And depending on what's going on, many times it rewards you. So, can he check that? Can he check that aggressiveness when he needs to? When he gets single file, is he willing to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to run 12th here for a little while. I hate it, but this is what I'm going to have to do. We didn't see it at all from him last night, or Chase Elliott for that matter. And thank goodness, I love them trying to do something different. But that's the only question I've got. And do they have the speed? They quite simply do the Toyotas have the speed? The one guy that nobody's talked about, and I don't know how you go to a plate race and not talk about him, is Brad Kay.
This is why him and I work together, because he's next on my list. I'm ready to talk about Brad.
Keselowski last night wasn't in the picture anywhere because he had his problems, had his issues. But, man, when you go plate racing, and we've talked about it a lot, the guy I watch, the guy I like to watch the most is Brad Keselowski. I think the way he races on plate racing is really good. They have fast race cars. They're Fords. I think he's got to be in your must pick.
Well, let's hear, because I have my opinion, but for once I'm going to make the stat guy go first because he seems to be taking all my stuff. So go ahead.
So when was the last time Keselowski finished a race at Daytona?
I don't care.
I don't like where he's going with this because he's going to agree with me. So I have a complete avoid for Brad Keselowski. A complete avoid. He has wrecked in the last 4 Daytona races. And I think when you talk about aggressive, and I know that it was Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin in the 150s, right? Mr. Aggressive was taken out by a pit stop. That's the only reason he wasn't there. I think Brad Keselowski will be a mover. Do I think he could win a stage? Yes. Will I have him as a bonus pick in the stages? Probably. Do I think he can win the Great American Race? I think he has a little bit of what I call the Dale Earnhardt syndrome. The greatest guy ever, the Intimidator. It took him 20 years to win the Great American Race. I think because he just wanted it so bad and because he had some awful luck. Let's just be clear. But he almost wanted it so bad, right? Well, I think Brad's almost there. He's a very, he thinks a lot in the race car. And I wonder if he's not a little consumed by trying to win this race and maybe trying a bit too hard. That's my 2 cents.
Well, a little bit like the case I made with Denny Hamlin. That also goes to Brad because Brad's extremely aggressive, but I think Brad has the speed. that Denny doesn't have. So I just can't. I know the stats, and I knew he hadn't had good Daytona 500 finishes, but I just cannot pass that up. He runs so well on plate races.
Well, the one guy we haven't talked about yet, and he's been talked about all week, is the winner of the Clash, Jimmy Johnson. Wins the Clash, controversial move, a lot of differences opinions. In the 150s, I'm not sure there are a variety of opinions of this. In my mind, flat and simple, he runs over the 18, off turn 2 down the backstretch. Car moves up the racetrack. I'm not saying on purpose. I don't think he hung it right and said, I'm going to wreck Kyle Busch. But in the end, he wrecked Kyle Busch. Does Jimmy Johnson break through with what could be, it's hard to say with a guy's numbers like his, could this be a career win? Longest win streak. Could he bounce back and win the Daytona 500?
And new crew chief. You love his new crew chief.
I love his crew chief. Kevin Mendering, longtime engineer for me at the 88. Started sweeping the floors in the chassis shop at Hendrick Motorsports a lot, parallels to what I did. And to be quite frank, he is the reason we won those races in 2014. Kevin Mendering is a genius in my mind. He knows about setting up a race car, so can him and the 7-time work together and figure it out?
A genius.
Genius.
That,
well, he was working with me. He had to be pretty smart because I'm not. So he had to offset what I don't have.
So have the incidences that Jimmy Johnson been in,
I like where you're going with this.
Cut, his aggressiveness?
Yep.
Has it, because,
Well,
I love the fact that,
right?
I love the fact, like, after class, he's like, oh, I won, you know.
I don't care if you like me.
But then after last night, he's like, oh, my gosh, so, emotionally, and he's a 7-time champion, but still, man, you can't drive your race car thinking about making that guy mad. And in Jimmy's situation, I don't know that he can avoid thinking that at this point. So I don't know the effect that'll have, but it'll have some sort of an effect.
I agree. I think even Jimmy John, I couldn't agree with you more on his reaction to the Clash. He looked like a guy that could care less if other drivers liked him. And for the record, I love that. I don't want a guy that wants to be buddies. I don't want drivers that want to go have tea together and hang out. I want drivers that try to win. That's why I started Jimmy Johnson. But, boy, that was pretty aggressive in a qualifying race to wreck one of the Final Four from Miami a year ago. I do think that's going to hurt him a little bit. And you know how it is from behind the wheel. You can't second guess. On top of the pit box, it's pit or stay out. You got to make a decision. Behind the wheel, you have to make a decision. So I'm
right now.
So let's parlay. We're going to grab last thing we want out of you about Daytona. Tell me, Hendrick Motorsports, so much speed qualifying. We didn't get to see much in the 150s because 2 of the cars kind of quit. What do you think?
Well, they lost their track position first. They wouldn't have quit if they hadn't lost their track position. They didn't
lost their track position by how they pitted.
They did not do a good job.
No.
They did not do a good job of keeping the track position. And this is a track position race. It is going to be a track position race. So it's really hard for me to tell from those guys. But it wouldn't be the first time that Hendrick Motorsports came to Daytona, Talladega, and had a lot of speed, but it didn't show up in the race. And then, Jimmy's situation, Jimmy Johnson's not just turning and wrecking people. They've got something going on where their cars aren't, again, in my opinion, aren't driving great. So you're going to have to – the cars are going to eventually have to drive good unless you get a short run. You get new tires, short run, but they're eventually going to have to drive well. So Hendrick just hasn't convinced me that they are there. Their speed impressed me on qualifying day, but they just haven't convinced me that they can win this race.
But they've won this race 8 times. There's only one team that's won it more, and that's Petty Enterprises.
When was the last time?
Come on, Stat Guy. Look it up. I mean, we don't know the answer. We would have asked you if we'd have known. So you look, he didn't like it when you ask him a question.
I don't be asking that. People aren't watching this
time. I know. It gets a little nervous. What you don't know is Russell's normally up there in the booth with us, and we ask him that question, and he's not on camera. So he's a little uncomfortable sitting here on camera, which I think makes it even better.
But that look he gave me, we get that a lot.
2014?
2014.
I knew that answer.
A long time ago.
I knew that answer. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming to join us. Real quick, let's talk about it. I was picking on you being Harrison Burton's dad. He's in the truck all year, right?
All year.
Driving for KBM.
All year.
So is this dad outfit right here, Dex Imaging, Safe Flight Autoglass supporting?
Well,
I mean, let's support the companies that support Harrison. We'll support them.
100%.
Congratulations on the ARCA race. I know we're going to be watching tonight in the truck race. And then you and I, every Monday.
Watching? I might need to hold your hand.
I know. We haven't decided where that is. And then every Monday, or at least the first 8 of the year, you can always catch Burton and I on NASCAR America. No host. It's just me, Burton, and DJ. It's a train wreck worth watching. It's awesome. We talk about everything under the sun. And then come the second half of the year, we'll be back in the booth covering the race and looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it. It's great fun.
All right, Burton, I appreciate you joining me. Can't wait to get in the booth. Second half of the year, it's going to be a good time, bud. All right, well, not only do you have the option of NASCAR Fantasy Live, a 26-week grind of beating your buddies in fantasy racing. If you're more of a 1-week guy, you know me at times, my focus can get a little distracted. I like a 1-week challenge. Head to NASCAR.com and check out the Props Challenge. 10 prop bets every week. See how talented you are and see how you score out of the 10 versus everyone else who signed up to play. And for more on the Props Challenge, and specifically here at Daytona, let's head to the Charlotte studio and Christian Bocchicchio.
Thanks, Steve. I am pumped about this new Props Challenge for fans. Another really fun, really easy way to get in on the action, give yourself even more to root for on race day. Looking right at the Daytona 500 slip, I see two truths staring back at me. There will be more than 12 race leaders, and there absolutely will be more than 23 lead changes. First off, the 500 is unpredictable, and thus hard to handicap. So I feel better about props tied to the field instead of individual drivers. Then, consider that each of those statements has already come true at all but one Great American race this decade, with 12 race leaders in 2015 and 20 lead changes in 2016 being the lowest totals we've seen since 2010. Even last year, when Ryan Blaney led 118 laps, we still ended up with 14 different leaders and 24 lead changes. Now factor in starting positions, the impact of stage points, and the ever-present potential for chaos in this race in particular. The over on lead changes and race leaders just looks like a layup to me, Steve. What stands out to you guys?
Thanks, Christian. I'm looking forward to this. I think this props game is going to be a good time. So he had a couple good ones there. What was it? Lead changes and leaders. But before, let's talk about the game real quick. 10 questions every week. 1 point per question. Best score you can get is 10. But, Russell, you get a little aggressive. You pick all 10. You get them wrong. You lose a point for everyone you get wrong. So you can get a minus 10. So first, let's start with your strategy. You're Mr. Numbers. You think you have all the answers. You going to play all 10?
Well, you don't have to play all 10. That's the beauty of the game. So if you're not comfortable on one, you don't have to play it.
That is how a stat guy see me, the gambler. I'm going to be on all 10. That's why there's 10. I'm going to win with 10 points. So let's start with his. I think he picked up two good ones now. I think he thinks there's locks. I completely disagree with perhaps both of them. So where do you start on it? Let's start with lead changes. What's the over-under on lead changes?
It's more than 23 lead changes.
More than 23. So the gambler and me, we're just going to make an over-under at basically 23. So do you think there's going to be more than 23?
Well, the numbers say yes, but I think the racing we saw the past week, I'm a little worried about that.
One show and the stat guy turns into a race analyst. See how that works? I have to agree with you. So the numbers say over for sure. It's a lock. But we saw both 150s, very single file. I think there's going to be some great racing at the end of the stages, great racing in the Daytona 500, but it is a long, grueling afternoon. I think there's going to be some conservative moments where guys are going to settle in, let their stuff kind of, take a breath, not beat your car up. So I'm taking the under on lead changes. How about leaders?
So I would say, again, the numbers say over, but again, the racing we saw, do you agree with that? Or?
So I'm going to flip, and I'm going to say over as well. And here's why. Stages, racing to stage finishes, pit strategy. I think this isn't going to be a straightforward Daytona 500. It's not going to be pit every 35 or 40 laps and put on 4 tires. You're going to see some 2 tires. Remember, if you lead just 1 lap under yellow, you're a leader of the race. So I'm going under on the lead changes, over on the amount of leaders. I think it's going to be over 12. Let's talk about some other ones. How about this? I like this one right here. This is a straight, I feel like I'm in Vegas on this one. Will William Byron, sophomore sensation, lead over or under 22.5 laps starting on the pole in the Great American Race? Come on, that's a softball.
What do you think?
Over. Over for sure. It's a softball. This is what's going to happen. Mark my words. Green flag. Outside doesn't go. William Byron pulls up, settle in against the wall. Clap, clap, clap. That one's going to be over at lap 23. He'll lead the first 23 laps of the Daytona 500.
So those Fords start where? Third?
Oh, here he comes. Here comes the stat guy. Go ahead.
Right?
Yeah.
So those Fords are going to line up and just ditch those 2 Chevys.
So you don't think. So you said William Byron is under 22.5 laps.
Right.
See, so this is where I'm going to win the props this weekend, and Russell's going to lose. All right, I mean, that's a legitimate argument, but I just don't think that – I mean, Hendrick Motorsports has the front row. I don't think they're going to just blow by both of them. You disagree. You feel they're going to just push them out of line right away.
Yeah, there's only 2 of them. There's 6 of them lined up.
You said there'd be no math.
If you can't do that math, then
I like this one. This is another good one. Starting position of the winner. Okay. So what does history say? They have it over under 6.5. This is a race that normally what?
So normally this one's over. Like you can bet the over on this one, but that's a pretty good number.
Let me see your starting lineup over here.
Do I have?
Yeah, let me have your paperwork.
Okay, you can have my paperwork.
So 6.5. So that's eliminating William Byron, Alex Bowman, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Ricky Stenhouse, and Clint Bowyer. So you're basically betting that those 6 drivers will not win the race.
Correct.
You're going to just that easily take out Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano.
Yes.
The only 2 that have won races in 500 cars yet this week, the 2 150 winners.
Yes.
So, Okay, outside the top 6, who's going to win? I mean, if you're going to take the over, you're going to have to tell me who's going to win.
Well, you got the 21, the 10, the 11, the 19, the 48, the 9, the 6.
We're going to agree to disagree on this one. Agree to disagree on this one. This one right here is going to hurt your feelings because I know you're a huge Martin Truex Jr. fan. You go ahead and tell the fans at home you're a big Truex fan. Will Truex finish inside the top 5?
No, I think that's a risky pick.
I'm going to tell you right now, you see how quick that came off? That was the gavel from the stat guy. No, absolutely no. And I'm with Russell. Even in Joe Gibbs' equipment, it was moved from Furniture Row. Speedway racing and Martin Truex Jr. just don't go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Top 5's tough. Next week, I'll go with top 5 next week.
All right, well, there you have it. That's the props challenge, NASCAR.com. Go on. You can pick up to the 10. 1 point if you're right. You lose a point if you're wrong. See how you can compare. I'm going to play. Stat guy's going to play. See how many you score. And you got to come back next week and see how you ended up because I will be bragging after I go probably 7 out of 10. And Russell is probably
8
only
out of
got
10.
8 out of 10?
That's
You heard it here. So now you're going to get the other 2 wrong or not playing?
I haven't decided yet.
Oh, somewhere between 6 and 8 points out of Russell. All right, so listen, props bet, fantasy live. We have all these things, the Great American Race. This is going to be a career-changing day for someone. It doesn't matter if you've already won it. If you win this race a multiple time, it changes your career. If you win it for the first time, it changes your career. So I'm going to finish this with my lineup, but we have some names we have yet to touch on. So I got a whole list. I want to run through them, and it starts with we talked about winning and changing your career. I don't know if anyone has been maybe more of an emotional win than bringing the 3 back to victory lane at Daytona last year. Austin Dillon, the big move on Eric Almirola, the last lap. I expect to see fireworks again on the last lap. Where do you stand on Austin Dillon for the Daytona 500?
I haven't seen a lot of speed out of him this week.
Okay, just so you know, when Russell does this, that means it's going to be bad. That's a hesitation. That's like, I want to deliver bad news, but I hope Austin doesn't hear this. So go ahead. Kick Austin.
So I like that he's back with Danny Stockman, who he won the Truck Championship and Xfinity Championship with, but I just don't think he's –
But you can just say it. Listen, you're here for your expert advice. You have to learn.
This isn't the week for Austin Dillon.
Okay, this isn't the week. I agree. I like your Danny Stockman point. I just think that this race is playing where the last 5 or 6 laps is going to be chaos. But the 100 miles leading up to that is truly going to be kind of a puzzle. And you have to put lap by lap together, a lot like we saw what Chase Elliott was doing. You're not going to see the storm from 10th to 1st. It's going to be one position at a time. And if you make a mistake in those closing laps, you're going to get filed out. What he did last year was spectacular. But listen, back-to-back, that doesn't happen very often. And I don't think it's going to be Austin Dillon here. So we're both against poor Austin Dillon. How about another great highlight in last year's Daytona 500? Bubba Wallace finished second, first ride in the 43. Let's get the 2 iconic numbers right out of the way, the 3 and the 43. Go ahead. I know what you're going to say.
His career best finish. It was a great day for him. That was a changing day for him, too, but I just don't see it again.
I don't see it again. And I'll be honest, I didn't learn a lot in the 150s, but I did learn that I didn't love the 43 car. I thought it looked like it had some handling woes. It just didn't look like he had the car to be aggressive, which is what you need to have for sure. Well, how about this? The most popular driver. He's going to win it again this year, I'm sure. He's the guy. He's definitely going to win it again after getting out of the 150s and saying, you know what? I don't know what everybody else was doing, but I was trying to pass cars, and he was. Every time I looked up, this guy was out there by himself making passes. Chase Elliott, 3-time winner in 2018. First, how many does he win in 2019? And then second, does he win the Daytona 500?
I think the over-under on him is 3.
Well, that's a good season prop bet. You got a buddy, you want to just throw out a little side prop bet with your buddy. I think the over-under on Chase Elliott for wins 3. He's probably going to push you to 3.5, but we'll see. Good odds maker. You got to keep it odd. You can't have a push. 3's no good. All right, so over-under on 3. How about the Daytona 500?
I like him in the Daytona 500. He's won a race here, at least one race the last 3 speed weeks. So it's a good chance for him to do that, and I like him. He's been fast. He's been aggressive. I like the way he's raced this weekend.
I'm torn. Are we going to get Chase Elliott, the veteran, calm, relaxed driver I saw at the second half of 2018, or are we going to get the Chase Elliott that says that he was DNF in both Daytona races last year, hasn't been inside of the top 14 ever at the Daytona International Speedway? See how I got those numbers? You didn't like that I brought the numbers out. So I'm going against Chase Elliott for 2 reasons. 1, I don't know what we're going to see at Daytona. 2, I'm worried about limits. I think Chase Elliott's going to have a huge year. And with limited to 10 picks in my NASCAR Fantasy Live lineup, I think Chase Elliott's going to be needed. I think Hendrick Motorsports I know Rick Hendrick, obviously worked there for years. He does not take losing lightly. I think they came out, and I know it's just qualifying for the 500, but that was Rick Hendrick. You see him walk down pit road on Sunday? That was Rick Hendrick saying, you know what, y'all thought I was done? We are not. We are going to go back to victory lane. I think it's going to be a huge emphasis on that 9 car, and I think he's going to win multiple races. So I'm going to save a pick with Chase Elliott. So we'll see how that works out. Let's talk. Well, first we got to cover the front row, right? So let's talk William Byron.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only fitting. 17 years ago, Chad Knaus brings a rookie Jimmy Johnson to Daytona. They sit on the pole for the 2002 Daytona 500. The polite divorce, the separation of the 7-time champs happen. Chad Knaus sits on the pole with William Byron. Kevin Meendering goes to victory lane with Jimmy Johnson. It's a great weekend for those two teams, but now we're looking ahead. What do you think about William Byron's chances in the Daytona 500?
Well, he's won here in an Xfinity car, so I think he knows how to do this type of racing. I just think this is, like you said before, it's going to be more of a chess match when we get down to it. I don't see him
experience. You're concerned
having that
about
much
the experience.
Correct.
You don't think the experience on the pit box is enough to lead him on the track?
No.
So I think that the pit box will give William Byron the chance. And I'm a big believer that you have to lose one before you can win one, and I think that's what's going to have to happen. I think William Byron's going to be around with 25 to go, but I just think there's going to be a moment, a move that he's going to get out and hopefully not hang his head, but he's going to say, if I could go back and redo this one move, I might have had a shot. So I'm also against William Byron as well. So let's talk a few sleepers. I have the sleeper of all sleepers. He's actually going to be in my – oh, you like where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. Las Vegas, why not gamble with a Las Vegas native, not a Busch, either Busch brothers, but Brendan Gaughan? I mean, if your dad owns a casino, you have to be a gambler. Brendan Gaughan is a grinder. And when I look at the Daytona 500, it is a grinder's sort of race. You can't shake him. He never disappears. He doesn't go away. He was side by side with Joey Gase for 10 laps in the 150. I mean, this is my kind. You want to talk about blue-collar racer? Brendan Gaughan's a blue-collar racer. And go ahead and tell everybody his numbers at the Daytona, pretty impressive.
They are, but you're saying he was racing Joey Gase.
Side by side, grinding on his door.
Okay. But the numbers are in your favor, though.
Mm-hmm.
3 of his last 4 Daytona races in the top 10.
So let's be clear. Brendan Gaughan, he's not a race-winning pick, but I think he's a great choice. You're actually going to see him in my garage for this reason. If we see a wreck coming in the end of stage 1 or just a wreck early in the 500, chances are Brendan Gaughan will probably be lagging back behind that. That's his strategy. And if that happens and the numbers dwindle, Brendan Gaughan is going to score you major points by getting to the finish of this race. So I like him. I'm trying to decide whether I really gamble and put him in my lineup. That would be a big gamble. Or if I put him in my garage and wait and see.
So the guy I think is the best guy that's a sleeper and you want to use in this race is the 37.
Little Chris Buescher. Why is that?
He's the only guy to finish in the top 5 in both Daytona races last year. You believe that?
I don't believe it, and you're telling me. I mean, I'm questioning your numbers right here.
Isn't that not crazy?
So why do you think?
You tell me.
Is it by luck? Is it by skill?
You're the race analyst.
Do you think he's going to work good with Ryan Preece? You think that both combinations you like or more Chris Buescher?
I like them this year. They got more support from Hendrick this year, so I think that'll help them, and I think it's a rejuvenated team more or less.
I like that. I like where you're going. So there you have it, basically. You want 2 sleeper picks, some way to stand out in your NASCAR Fantasy Live. I think Brendan Gaughan and Chris Buescher are 2 names that could stand out. So I said I was going to give you my lineup, but only after Russell. All right, I need your lineup. I need 5 drivers in a garage ride. Give me your 5.
Okay, so my 5 are the 6, the 10, the 17, the 21, and the 37.
All right.
And then my garage is at the 22.
Really? In your garage?
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me this race runs normal? No big accidents, maybe a couple single cars. All your guys are still in the race. Are you going to pull the trigger and put Logano in?
No.
Why?
I'm going to save him.
All right. Well, I have an ego, and I don't want to start the year off behind, so I'm swinging for the fences. My lineup, Joey Logano, he's a must pick. Let's be clear. Denny Hamlin, must pick. I mean, the guy, you can't shake him. So those are my 2 must picks. I like Newman. You had Newman as well. Newman and Roush Fenway. We haven't talked. Let's talk about Newman real quick. I think Ryan Newman, 2008 Daytona 500 winner. You want to talk about blue-collar racing, that's the guy I'm taking to a bar fight. I mean, you've seen this guy. He's tough. He's the hardest guy there is to pass any track. So you put him on Daytona, I think he's the only guy here. His car is automatically too wide. I mean, he's my kind of racer. He's going to score points.
And finish in the top 10 in the last 3 Daytona races, too.
See? All right, I like that. Paul Menard.
Mm-hmm.
I want Fords and I want to save Brad for later. That's my Paul Menard pick. Eric Almirola, I have a little bit of heartache, but that's why I don't have Harvick in there. I think he's going to outrun Almirola, but I want Almirola in because I'm going to save Harvick. And then my garage pick, Brendan Gaughan. I mean, how could you go wrong with the missile from Las Vegas? I think he's going to hang around and score some points.
So why would you not put Gaughan in and have somebody else in your garage?
Listen, it's going to be a game time decision.
Okay.
I love to tell everybody I'm going to wake up Sunday. I'm going to have a little coffee. I'm going to watch a pre-race show. I'm going to see what the weather looks like. I'm going to check Twitter. I got to do all my stuff to see who's going to do what. All right, Russell, I appreciate all the information. Lots of good stuff here. Everyone's going to use it to set your lineup. And if you need some help setting your lineup every single week, NASCAR Fantasy Fastlane. You can also tweet me at any time. Russell, Stat Guy Russell, he's Twitterless Russell. You can't tweet him. He's no fun. He's boring. He's a stat guy. What can you do? But listen, guys, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on iTunes and download it anywhere you get your podcast. The full episode is available on YouTube, and there'll be updates all weekend long on NASCAR.com. Not to mention my Twitter account, Jessica's Twitter account, and I challenge you, go on, log in. NASCAR Fantasy Fastlane has a league. NBC Sports has a league. And we've already proven that I can't wait for the prop bets. It's going to be a great 2019 season.